Living in Bangkok sounds cheap until this one thing hits and changes everything. Most Americans think Bangkok is one of the cheapest cities to live in, and at first, it really does feel that way. However, before you know it, your budget starts slipping, and you're not even sure why. We break down the biggest mistakes Americans make when moving to Bangkok, backed by insights from platforms like Numbeo, Internations, and Expatistan, plus what those sites don't tell you. Stick around to the end to uncover the real reason the city feels cheap at first, and why that illusion doesn't last. It starts with a number that feels too good to question. You've probably seen it before, those YouTube videos claiming you can live in Bangkok for $800 a month, sometimes even less. The creator walks through street markets, shows $1 meals, flashes a modest apartment, and suddenly the math feels undeniable. For a lot of Americans, that number becomes the plan. It's the reason they book the flight. But here's where the story shifts. Those YouTube budgets are often built for views, not real life. They highlight the absolute cheapest version of Bangkok. Street food every day, older apartments far from transit, minimal health care, and almost no room for unexpected costs. What they don't show is sustainability. Living like that for a week? Sure. For a year? That's a different conversation entirely. Then comes the backpacker effect. Bangkok has long been a hub for budget travelers, and backpacker pricing is very real. Hostels, short-term deals, and ultra-cheap eats designed for people passing through. But that ecosystem isn't built for long-term residents. Once you start renting a proper condo, paying utility bills, using air conditioning daily, and choosing convenience over constant bargain hunting, your costs quietly climb. And most people don't notice it happening because cheap travel content doesn't translate to real living. Travel is temporary. You tolerate inconveniences, chase deals, and treat discomfort like part of the adventure. Living is different. You want reliability, comfort, and routine. You take taxis when it's raining. You order delivery when you're tired. You pick apartments closer to transit or work. Each small decision feels justified, and each one adds to the total. That's when the illusion starts to crack. Bangkok can absolutely be affordable, but not in the way those viral budgets suggest. The biggest mistake isn't overspending right away. It's believing the city will naturally stay cheap, no matter how your lifestyle evolves. At first, you tell yourself you'll keep things simple, but Bangkok has other plans. It usually starts small. Maybe you upgrade from a basic apartment to a sleek condo with a rooftop pool and gym. The rent still feels cheap compared to back home, so it seems like a smart move. But this is where the shift begins. Luxury condos in Bangkok are incredibly accessible, and that accessibility makes it easy to justify spending more than you planned. Then come the little rewards. After a long day, rooftop dining feels like something you've earned. A stunning skyline, great food, a couple of drinks. It's not outrageously expensive, but it's not street food either. And when you're surrounded by options like that every night, it slowly becomes part of your routine instead of an occasional treat. That's when the city really pulls you in. Bangkok's nightlife is on another level. Vibrant, diverse, and always just around the corner. Whether it's bars, clubs, or casual late-night hangouts, there's always something happening. One night out turns into two, then three. It doesn't feel excessive in the moment because everything still seems affordable compared to Western prices. But over time, those nights stack up faster than you expect. And the tricky part? None of it feels like overspending. It feels like living better. That's the real trap. Bangkok makes upgrading your lifestyle very easy, and very expensive. Every upgrade feels justified because the price difference doesn't seem huge on its own. A slightly nicer condo, a few more dinners out, more frequent nights enjoying the city. Each decision feels small, almost insignificant, until you zoom out. Suddenly, your cheap Bangkok life looks very different from what you originally planned. Your monthly budget has doubled or even tripled, and you're left wondering how it happened without any major splurges. It didn't happen all at once. It happened one upgrade at a time in a city designed to make every upgrade feel worth it. Stick around. We're continuing with what can happen to you should you choose to live in the wrong area of the city. Where you live in Bangkok can quietly decide whether your budget survives or disappears. It often begins with good intentions. You land in the city, open a map, and look for areas that feel familiar, convenient, and safe. Names like Sukhumvit start popping up everywhere, recommended in blogs, praised in forums, and featured in countless relocation videos. It's modern, connected, filled with restaurants, cafes, and everything you think you'll need to settle in quickly. So you choose it. At first, it feels like the right decision. The BTS is nearby, international grocery stores are within walking distance, and you're surrounded by other expats navigating the same transition. It's comfortable, easy, almost too easy, but that comfort comes with a cost. Living in expat zones like Sukhumvit means you're stepping into a version of Bangkok that's been tailored for foreigners. Rents are higher, restaurants are priced differently, and everyday services often come with a markup. You might not notice it immediately because everything still feels cheaper than back home, but compared to local areas, the difference is significant. And that's where most people get it wrong. They assume Bangkok is cheap everywhere, not realizing how much location changes the equation. Move just a few stops away from the expat hubs, and the prices shift. Local neighborhoods offer lower rent, more authentic food options, and a cost of living that actually reflects Thailand's economy. But they also require adjustment, less English, fewer familiar brands, and a bit more effort to navigate daily life. So many choose convenience instead. They pay extra to stay close to transit lines, malls, and Western-style amenities. They justify it as saving time or reducing stress, which makes sense in the moment. But over time, that premium becomes a permanent part of their monthly expenses. And here's the reality most people don't realize until later. You're not paying Thailand prices, you're paying expat prices. That distinction changes everything. Because once you're locked into a lease in one of these areas, your cheap Bangkok lifestyle starts to look a lot more like a discounted version of the West rather than a truly affordable life abroad. And it all comes down to where you decided to live. It doesn't feel like overspending, it just feels like enjoying the city. In your first week in Bangkok, everything is new, exciting, and worth trying. You tell yourself you'll explore the famous street food scene, and you do, at least for a while. But somewhere between the heat, the busy streets, and the occasional craving for something familiar, your habits begin to shift. It usually starts with Western food. Maybe it's a burger one night, pasta the next, or brunch on a lazy Sunday. The prices don't seem outrageous, especially compared to the US, so it feels harmless. But Western meals in Bangkok are significantly more expensive than local dishes, and they add up quickly when they become part of your regular routine instead of an occasional comfort. Then come the cafes. Bangkok's cafe culture is hard to resist. Beautiful interiors, strong air conditioning, reliable Wi-Fi, and menus that feel like a slice of home. It's easy to turn a quick coffee into a daily ritual or a casual meeting spot into a place you spend hours in. A drink here, a pastry there, it doesn't feel like much in the moment. But multiply that by 20 or 30 days, and suddenly it's a serious line item in your budget. And then there's convenience. After a long day, cooking feels like a chore. Going out feels like effort. So you open a delivery app, scroll for a few seconds, and tap order. It's fast, easy, and surprisingly affordable, at least at first glance. But with delivery fees, service charges, and the tendency to order more than you need, Those small, frequent purchases start stacking up faster than almost anything else. That's when the pattern locks in. You're no longer eating like someone who lives in Bangkok. You're eating like someone visiting it. You prioritize comfort, variety, and convenience over cost because technically you can still afford it. But that mindset is exactly what shifts your spending into a completely different category. This is where most people's budgets quietly double. Not because of one big decision, but because of daily habits that feel insignificant on their own. A Western meal instead of local food. A cafe stop instead of making coffee at home. Delivery instead of walking down the street. Each choice makes sense in isolation. Together, they rewrite your entire cost of living. And the hardest part? It doesn't feel like a mistake. It feels like you're just living well, until you finally look at your monthly total and realize just how far you've drifted from that original cheap Bangkok plan. Keep watching. We'll next show you what the result can be if you ignore the cost of convenience in the city. It's never the big purchases that break your budget. It's the tiny ones you stop noticing. In Bangkok, convenience is everywhere, and it works almost too well. You land in the city thinking you'll be mindful with spending, but within days you realize how easy life can be with just a few taps on your phone. It usually starts with rides. You download Grab, take a ride to avoid the heat, skip a crowded train, or save time getting across the city. It's cheap, right? At least compared to what you pay back home, so you do it again and again. Before long, short trips replace walking, and convenience quietly replaces intention. Then comes delivery. Maybe it's dinner after a long day, groceries when you don't feel like going out, or even coffee in the morning. Each order feels justified, quick, affordable, and efficient. But unlike occasional use, daily delivery builds a pattern. Fees, markups, and tips stack up in ways that aren't obvious in the moment. And then there's where you choose to work. Co-working spaces in Bangkok are sleek, comfortable, and designed to make you productive. Strong Wi-Fi, great coffee, air conditioning, and a professional environment, it all feels worth it. Paying for a day pass or a monthly membership doesn't seem excessive at first, especially if you compare it to Western prices. But here's the catch. None of these things feel expensive individually. A ride here, a delivery there, a workspace for the day. Each decision is small, reasonable, and easy to justify. That's exactly why they're so dangerous to your budget, because you don't track them the same way you would rent or major bills. And over time, they blend into your routine. That's when the real impact shows up. Small daily conveniences turn into big monthly expenses. Suddenly, you're spending hundreds more than you planned. Not on anything flashy or memorable, but on making life slightly easier, one decision at a time. And the hardest part is realizing that nothing feels wasteful until you add everything together. In a city like Bangkok, convenience isn't just accessible, it's addictive. Make sure to watch all the way through. You won't believe what we found to be the outcome of not tracking your spending in this Asian city. The most expensive mistake you can make in Bangkok is the one you never see happening. At first, everything feels under control. Prices are low, your rent seems reasonable, and each purchase feels small enough to ignore. You're not making any big, reckless decisions, so there's no reason to worry, right? That's exactly how it starts. You move through your days with no real awareness of your spending. A coffee here, a ride there, dinner out, maybe a few online orders. It all blends together. Because nothing feels expensive on its own, you don't feel the need to track it. There's no urgency, no pressure, no red flags, and then that quiet thought settles in. It's cheap anyway. That mindset becomes your safety net and your blind spot. Because when you believe everything is cheap, you stop questioning your habits. You stop checking your totals. You stop asking whether those daily choices are adding up to something bigger. Instead, you rely on a general feeling that you're spending less than you would back home. But feelings don't track numbers. Days turn into weeks, and weeks into months, your lifestyle slowly expands. Your routines become more comfortable, and your spending adjusts right along with it. Without tracking, there's nothing to interrupt the pattern. No moment of realization, no early warning, until it's too late. You not noticing the problem until your money is already gone. That's how this mistake plays out for most people. It doesn't hit you gradually, it hits all at once. Maybe it's when you check your bank account and see a number you weren't expecting. Maybe it's when you realize your savings haven't grown, or worse, they've shrunk. And suddenly, you're forced to ask a question you can't easily answer. Where did it all go? The truth is, it didn't disappear in one place. It slipped away in dozens of small, forgettable moments that never felt worth tracking. And without awareness, even a cheap city like Bangkok can become surprisingly expensive. You'll want to see what happens. Should you recreate a Western lifestyle living in Bangkok? Trust me, the faster you try to make Bangkok feel like home, the faster your budget starts to fall apart. It usually doesn't happen on purpose. You move to Bangkok for something different, lower costs, a new culture, a fresh pace of life. But after a few weeks, the unfamiliar starts to wear on you. You miss certain foods, routines, and comforts, so you start bringing pieces of home back into your daily life. That's when the shift begins. Imported goods are often the first step. Maybe it's your favorite snacks, familiar brands, or specific ingredients you're used to cooking with. They're easy to find in international supermarkets, neatly stocked and ready. But those items come at a premium, sometimes double or triple the local alternatives. And because they feel like small comforts, they quickly become regular purchases instead of occasional treats. Then come your comfort expectations. Back home, you're used to certain standards: consistent air conditioning, quiet spaces, reliable services, maybe even specific routines like gym memberships or subscription services. In Bangkok, all of that exists, but often at a higher cost than you expect, especially if you want the same level of consistency and convenience. So you upgrade, you choose newer condos, better locations, higher-end amenities. You prioritize convenience, cleanliness, and familiarity. None of it feels extravagant. It just feels normal. But those normal expectations are built on a Western cost structure, not a local one. And that's where things start to diverge, because Bangkok can absolutely be affordable, but not when you're aiming for premium living standards that mirror what you had back home. The city offers that lifestyle, no question, but it's priced accordingly, especially in areas designed for expats and long-term foreigners. Before you realize it, your cost of living starts to resemble what you were trying to leave behind. Maybe not exactly the same, but close enough to make you question the move. That's the trade-off most people don't see coming. The more you try to live like you're back home, the more expensive Bangkok becomes. And the irony is, the very thing that makes Bangkok affordable, its differences, is the first thing people try to erase. What we reveal to be the reason why Bangkok feels cheap only in the beginning might just bother you. It never stops feeling cheap because the prices change. It stops feeling cheap because you do. When people first arrive in Bangkok, everything feels like a bargain. Food is affordable, transport is manageable, and even nice apartments seem surprisingly within reach. But over time, something subtle happens. The city doesn't get more expensive. You just start living differently. You upgrade your lifestyle without really noticing it. What begins as a simple condo becomes a luxury unit with a pool and skyline view. What starts as occasional dining out turns into frequent rooftop dinners and cafe visits. Each step feels justified because the jump in price is never dramatic. It's incremental, almost invisible. Then you increase convenience. A quick grab ride replaces walking. Delivery replaces cooking. Co-working spaces replace home setups. None of these decisions feel excessive on their own, but together they reshape your entire cost of living. Comfort becomes the default. and effort starts to feel optional. And slowly, you stop thinking about spending altogether. Not because you're careless, but because nothing feels expensive in isolation. A few dollars here, a few hundred baht there, it all blends into the rhythm of daily life. There's no tracking, no reflection, just flow. That's the real illusion. Bangkok isn't expensive. The lifestyle you drift into is. But that doesn't mean you're stuck. The people who actually manage to enjoy Bangkok without financial stress follow a simple pattern, whether they realize it or not. They follow what can be called the 3 rules to avoid overspending. First, they control lifestyle upgrades by choosing intentionally. They don't upgrade automatically just because something is available. They pause and ask if it actually improves their life or just adds cost. Second, they mix local and expat living for balanced comfort and cost. They enjoy Western conveniences when it makes sense, but they don't rely on them for everything. Local food, local transport, and local neighborhoods stay part of their routine. Third, they track their spending because early awareness equals control. They don't wait until the end of the month to find out what happened. They stay aware as they go, which keeps their habits in check. Because the people who save money in Bangkok don't avoid spending. They control how they live. And that's the real difference. Bangkok can be one of the best cities to live in, but only if you avoid these mistakes. For more tips on living and planning your life overseas, don't miss the other videos we've created to help you start with confidence.